morning.
Noreen O'Connell, Sister Rita Mary.
That's right.
I always like to say that name if you had a religious name, because some of your students could be listening.
Oh, God help
Could be
us.
watching.
Sure.
Because you're going to be on YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
This is your chance, what you've been waiting for.
Oh, lucky me.
So your journey, Noreen, began in Detroit.
Right.
So you could tell us a little bit about your beginnings, please.
Well, I come from an Irish Catholic family. My parents are Frank and Beulah O'Connell. They had 8 children, 5 girls and 3 sons. They lost the second daughter with meningitis, and her name was Rita Mary. So when I entered, I wanted to have that name. Wasn't sure I'd get it, because the novice mistress was, her postulant mistress was Rita Marie, and the sacristan was Mary Rita.
Okay.
And I was not the model postulant.
Here we go again. What do you mean you weren't the model postulant?
Well, I don't want to get into all those stories. They're in the past.
Well, we might want to entertain a couple of them a little bit later. Okay.
Okay.
So
what's next?
Well, you went to school, grade school and high school.
I went to St. Teresa's from 1st to 12th grade.
Okay.
I had a lot of wonderful nuns. When I was in 4th grade, we had Sister Rose Juan. And we knew she was Charlie Gehringer's cousin.
Oh.
And we were all Tiger fans. So during the Tiger season, Rose Juan and all of us would have a great time talking about Charlie. So that was good.
So Mary Gehringer, who was I forget what congregation.
That's a cousin. She's
that's
a
a cousin.
Servite.
She sang at one of the Tiger games.
She did?
Yeah,
I remember the one downtown. She and I went to a couple ball games together.
But anyway, is that what made Rose Joanne so special to you? Because her...
Not really, but that was a good thing to start off with in grade school.
So who influenced you along the way toward your vocation?
Toward my vocation, it was my Aunt Agnes, who was an IHM. And actually, even though I had Dominicans for 12 years, I thought I was going to go to Monroe, but that didn't happen, and evidently the Lord got me here to Adrian.
So it must have been some Adrian Dominican that had made a special impression on you.
I don't think so.
Just what made you choose them versus the IHMs? What made you
my
choose
aunt,
us? Who was an IH? Oh,
I think she was responsible for a vocation, and I still wanted to be a nun. So my mother said, "Let's go to Adrian," and we went to Adrian, saw Mother Gerald, and the rest is history.
Okay, and your family, all the siblings were happy to say goodbye to you?
Well, 5 of my classmates, we went into the Adrians, but not at the same time. And I graduated in 1945 when the war was going on, and my brothers were gone, and a couple of my sisters were married, and then I'd be gone. So it was like the whole family was disintegrating right away. So my mother asked me to wait. So I waited 1.5 years and went to UD for 1.5 years, and then entered in February.
Did your brothers go to service?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. 2 of them, 2 of the 3. My other brother had asthma, and they wouldn't take him, so he was the furlough guy. Everybody that came home on furlough, Dave had to entertain. So he was Furlough David.
Furlough David, oh, that's cute. Okay, so then you entered.
Yes.
And you had formation.
Yes.
Which was a blessing in your life.
Yes, and when I went out on mission, Sister Leslie took me on the bus. We went to Resurrection. And for my first 10 years, I was changed 6 times. So I didn't know if I was easy to live with or hard to get along with.
Isn't that funny? Because that's what we were wondering. Whenever you didn't stay at a place, what did I do?
Not only that, I never had the same grade twice in a row. And I had every grade. Ever.
In your whole...
Well, those first 10
Those
years.
first 10
those first 10 years were horrible. I went from supposed to have third grade, and couple of weeks before they gave me fifth grade. Madeline Sophie helped me. The first day of school, I was petrified. And I went to her classroom after a while. It was only 10:30 in the morning. I said, Sophie, what do I do now? I'm all finished. She said, you can't be finished. Go back and do it again.
So we had those plans, but we didn't know what we were doing.
I whipped through them right away.
Yeah.
So from then on, I suppose the rest of my whole career it was, I better figure out how to do this. Because I went from fifth grade to seventh grade to 3, 4, and 5, a combination of 3, 4, and 5. Mother Gerald came for visitation, didn't like that setup, so she changed us all. And so then I went from 3, 4, and 5 to 5th and 6th, so that year I had all those people. So that was my life from then on.
Well, Resurrection was a big place,
Yes,
big convent. So
yeah, so I had a lot of nuns there, and then I went to live with 3 other people. That was devastating.
Where did you live with the 3 people?
I think in Sturgis.
Okay, it's over there. All right.
So,
That's very challenging. 3 people. If you don't get along.
And I was the kid,
Okay.
and I didn't know anything.
But you just came from Lansing.
Yeah, but I was supposed to have third, then I had fifth, and
Okay.
then I had
So what
seventh.
did you teach in Sturgis?
Third, fourth, and fifth, whatever you taught, the third, fourth, and I didn't know what little kids did, but I had 3 spelling books in my hand, but let's move on from that one.
Have you ever seen any of your students that you had when you didn't know what you were doing? When you thought you didn't know what you were doing?
I don't know. I know when I got to Resurrection the second time, I've seen them. But another example of that was I was at Royal Oak and was in the 7th grade, and one of the high school nuns got changed about a month or 2 later, and guess who went into high school from 7th grade over the weekend? I did. So I went from 7th to teaching junior and seniors, English and religion and history. All big subjects that I had to study the night before I went into the classroom.
And be in bed by 9:30.
Oh, I never was. I had the lights on no matter what. No matter they banged on my door and told me to get to bed. I thought, well, I got to meet those kids. I can take care of her.
Talk about the grace of God.
You're not kidding.
When we started out and we thought we didn't know what we were doing, but boy, I tell you, we taught the children. And
when I went, they gave me my schedule, and one said study, 6-hour study hall. And I said, what's study hall? I said, what do I do if they don't study? Oh, she said, you'll find out. So I went in and stood in the back of the room. I guess that was the smartest thing to do because they didn't know what was going on either. This was the first day, and their nun was missing, and I was there.
I don't think...
So I had better stories than these.
Oh, you had... You wanted to share a story with us?
Well, I know. What's the next question?
Well, no, I'm just asking you about when you were your ministry, your teaching, because I know you've had other ministries.
After Royal Oak, and I did teach juniors and seniors for about 2 years. I was changed back to Resurrection, and I knew I would be a junior, senior English teacher. So then I was settled, and that's when I met Pat Johnson, who was Misericordia at that time, and she had junior and senior teachers, so we worked together, and those were the days of John Kennedy being shot and Martin Luther King, and before that, though, she and I went down to hear Martin Luther King at Michigan State. Actually, it was at night, wintertime, I think, or October, and it was dark, and Molly Marie gave us permission to take the bus and go hear him. And from then on, peace and justice and all that stuff got going in my career.
But you told me about, I don't know if that's yet to come, but I don't want to lose the story. You were at a school someplace, and the faculty, the lay faculty was up.
That was one of my ministries at Aquinas
Aquinas in
in Southgate.
Southgate, Michigan.
I'd been at Aquinas once before, but that was during the 60s or 60s, I think. But in between that, I was at St. Gabriel's during the 70s when schools were closing. And St. Gabriel's, I was assigned the principal and the coordinator. I'd never been principal before, of course, so this was another first to go in and decide how to be principal. So, and I also knew our school was on the edge because it was, the high school was small and they were closing schools. So when I got the word that we would have to merge with Holy Redeemer, along with All Saints merging with Holy Redeemer, that was difficult because I just knew what's going to happen. When I got the word, the final word, it was a school day, and it was the afternoon. I got the word. So I decided I'd turn off the bells for a change of class, and I went to every classroom in the school and started with the freshmen, the sophomores, and the juniors, because they'd be the most affected.
Yeah.
To tell them it's definite, the school is going to close. But that night was a parish council night, and they raked me over the coals for telling
The parish
us.
council did.
Yes, because who was I to tell them before it was official? I said, well, I knew it was official, and I thought the students were the ones that needed to know. I thought, which was what I did all along my life, what I thought was right, which was not always good. So,
But you thought of the students.
yes, so when I was the coordinator, I was there for 3 years, and closing the school was difficult, and that was our chapter of renewal, and that was difficult. And because I wasn't the superior in the old ways,
No.
so I simply was going to be different, and that superior before me was quite straight-laced, and I was a little loosey-goosey, so we survived.
But you know, this was the beginning of your peace and justice. Was it at a grade school where the faculty, the lay faculty,
No,
were protesting?
No, it was never a lay school. It was Aquinas High School in Southgate. It was begun by 3 pastors, and the first time I was there, we only had freshmen and sophomores, and we had priests for the administration from the diocese that were not exactly schoolmen, so it was a little different. But when I went back the second time, the lay teachers, and the lay teachers were there with me when I was there the first time, the lay teachers were trying to arbitrate for a better salary. So, and also in between that, I was at Rosary after going from Holy Redeemer to Rosary for 3 years, and that's when we heard that we'd be getting our own ministries, we'd have to go get our own jobs, we'd have to do this. You know, everything was changing in the congregation as well as with Vatican II. So Rosary closed, so we closed St. Gabriel's, and then I closed Rosary. I didn't close it, but it closed. So we had to go looking for jobs. And we knew that Aquinas needed more teachers because they were going to have 4 years now, not just 2. So we got hired at Aquinas for that year. And the teachers were still trying to arbitrate, we knew.
Who were they arbitrating with? The Archdiocese?
No, because it was sort of the ones who had the control of it were the pastors.
The pastors, okay.
And the pastors told them that they would meet during the summer, but they never met. And so even though we were hired and the oblates were there running the school then, they called us up and said there might be trouble the first day. So when we...
Who's they? The priests? Or the teachers?
Well, everybody, the teachers, I mean,
Okay.
nobody was on the faculty side. Mm-hmm. So, but the priests said they would arbitrate the 3 pastors that put people in that school. But the head of the priests would not meet. So people stayed around all summer, those that were on the board or on the team to arbitrate, stayed around. Sister Andrea Bruton stayed all summer waiting for the call. Jim Klein stayed around all summer, never came.
Nothing happened.
So when they told us there might be problems on the first day, we went down and they were picketing. So we joined the Oblates and the lay teachers and the Dominicans, and we picketed.
Okay.
When the parents came in, they weren't too happy. So we told them, call Father Redrick. He's got to arbitrate. So finally they did.
So you got out there when it was at a time in our history when that was not, usually the sisters did not go out there and picket in these schools.
Oh,
yeah.
Now, come on, Peg.
So that's where you
Well, that was
began.
one of the ones.
Yeah.
I think before that I'd gone to Williams International and picketed there and more than one time because they were making motors for some nuclear something or other.
But peace and justice has been a passion of yours for
it's one of them.
many years. Yes.
My brother Frank used to say, "I'm afraid to watch television. Noreen will be hopping some fence trying
That's
to."
right. Okay, so renewal had an effect on you.
I was ready for renewal.
Uh-huh.
As a kid, 4th grade, I said to my mother, why do they always say he in the prayers and in church, and they never say she?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't believe in limbo, and I didn't believe in no salvation outside the Catholic Church, and I didn't even believe in all the things we did in the convent, so I was ready.
You're kidding.
Are you kidding me? I was ready I think we need to loosen up, I believe.
And so that's what happened with renewal, do you feel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was ready for that. We started going back to school. We started studying the documents. We went to Sacred Heart for all kinds of night classes, to Orchard Lake. And when I was at Rosary, I began to get certified for pastoral ministry because at that time I knew I'd be getting out of teaching. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. But how did you get involved, which I think another thing that's a passion of yours, or that you really started, was the whole issue of annulments within the Catholic Church.
It was the same in pastoral ministry as it was in school. The pastors hired us, but they didn't know what to do with us. So the first place I was at, where am I supposed to be looking, at you or at him?
No, look at me.
Okay.
Or I don't care if you look at him.
At Gate of Heaven, he hired me. I had no idea. He didn't know what to do with me. The Oblates had a house at that parish, and Tom Moore helped there.
Right.
So Tom and I decided on not just communion calls, and every now and then we would have a mass, a home mass for the shut-ins, and they would have their family, and he'd anoint, and we'd have that, and the pastor didn't really like that. And I think we parted that year. I was only there 1 year.
At Gate of Heaven.
And I went to Suzanne's. The first thing he said was, "Do you want the altar boys?" And I said no. So I carved out my own ministry there. And one time a lady came and said she'd been, I don't know what we talked about, but she said, "Oh, I applied for an annulment, and those papers have been in the drawer for 2 years." I said, "Well, go get them and bring them back." And that really was an eye-opener for me. It was about 5 pages that they had to work on, questions, and subtitles all the way through. And I had taught term papers, and I knew what it meant to have a neat-looking application go in. So how it was typed, because that was before computers, how it was set up, all that was important. So that's how I started, and I think I did 3 people at St. Suzanne's, and then I decided this is what I'm going to get into at any other parish.
Wonderful.
So I did. But people didn't know how to answer them. They didn't realize it was what happened before the marriage. That was what was crucial. And they didn't want to say anything bad about their spouse, the ex-spouse. I said, did it happen? And when they said, I said, well, put it in. This is a legal document. It's not a government document, a legal document that way. It's an ecclesial, it's just a church document. So you do have to do that.
And where did these documents end up? Where did they have to send them to?
I sent them to the tribunal, Detroit, downtown Detroit, and I didn't send anything that I didn't think would pass. And sometimes if they were too sloppy, I would take notes and I'd type them myself and fix them up and add things if they needed to be added that was true but not stated.
Yeah, and then they read them and signed them and yeah.
And waited 2 years to get a result.
Because that was a very difficult thing for Catholics to do. Because
for anybody to do.
For anybody. But did you just work with the Catholics? Well, of course, if they had a non-Catholic spouse, yeah.
Sometimes I would work with the non-Catholic, but it was very difficult. It was more like counseling that I was doing with them to try to. And after Suzanne's, I started going to back to Sacred Heart to get the accreditation to be an advocate for the tribunal.
Wonderful.
So that's what I did.
Again, peace and justice.
Yeah, but going back, I like to say for mentors, it would be Pat Johnson, not only for the school part, but when she got to be the overseas prioress to the overseas missions, and it would come back and telling me all the stories about the poor people and the military and the everything that was going on over there, and our involvement with El Salvador, applying all the ammunitions and everything. I not only went to School of the Americas every Christmas or every Thanksgiving, but I said, Pat, I want to go overseas somehow. Well, that was a pipe dream, but I read in the Michigan Catholic that a group of nuns were going to El Salvador to accompany the villagers back to their village. And the idea was that if Americans were with them, the soldiers would stay away from them. They wouldn't, prevent them and all that stuff. And the military was capturing the young boys, putting them in the military and all that kind of thing. Plus, it was right after a hurricane that they had in El Salvador. So Pat put me in touch with Helen Battle, whom she met during the leadership meetings, and she knew she was a seasoned missionary. So she said, if Helen's going on that trip, you can get hooked up with her, and I did go. And it was an awakening, and it made me more passionate with environment and military and writing letters, and
to this day.
And so right now the government's not in such great shape either. So
you think?
I think. So that was, but then I was worried because I had been arrested at Wordsmith and they'd fingerprinted, and I had to fill out stuff for the United States before I could go. And I thought, well, they might say no because I'd been fingerprinted. But that whole thing was a joke. So.
At the School of Americas?
No, over at Wordsmith.
Where was that?
Up north at the Air Force Base,
Okay.
Wordsmith Air Force Base. I think Pat and I were the only Dominicans that were there, but there were loads of lay people. And we got arrested, and they took us in, and they put the men in one court, handball court, and the women in another, and it just was nothing compared.
And it goes on and on and on in other ways in our
yes.
church, in our country.
Yes.
And
So I did get to share some of that with Pat, but that was about it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that that you want to share that you haven't shared about your
there's loads, but I don't have time to share it. So I would.
Do you feel you shared what was significant in your life?
Well, teaching everything and
Yeah.
just having to fly on my own, becoming a principal, having to fly on my own, a superior, not a superior, but whatever I was. During changes, that was plenty. Mm-hmm. And even going in pastoral ministry, I had to fly on my own.
Mm-hmm. And annulments, you flew on your own. So you're just,
I did that
at this time of your life, just
I did that for 40 years, so. So that's it.
And you just moved here a little bit ago, here on campus?
3 months ago.
And how has that adjustment been? And
that's fine.
I know you've been here a lot. You're
You're still adjusting.
You're also one of our constant mourners.
Oh, yeah.
Because you used to come in all the time for the wakes.
I learned
and
that from my
funerals.
parents.
Yes, that's very significant.
And am I down to the last minute? Or
Yes,
what?
you are.
Well, I'd like to say the one about my greatest blessings.
Okay.
I'd say, because I had thought about that, because that was one of the questions you asked us to think about. And my greatest blessings, I'd say, it's belonging to the O'Connell family, the Dominican family, the Johnson family, the family of 5 parishes, Gate of Heaven, St. Suzanne, St. Rene, St. Pius X, and St. Martin de Porres, because I met loads of very, very wonderful people in those 5 parishes, and you could be yourself. You didn't have to be a teacher in the classroom, keeping order. So, my life in 20 minutes.
I think a little bit longer. Anything else?
Oh my God. What did I want to say? I don't really remember.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Noreen, for sharing what you did. You certainly have made a difference in our world, in our church, with what you have been called to do. Trained or untrained, you became trained.
I became trained.
And in the name of the congregation, I thank you for you and for coming to us and your special significance of your name, Rita Mary, bringing your sister into your life the
That's
way
right.
you did.
That's
Yes.
right. I remember the first time I knew about her. My Aunt Catherine told me I had a sister in heaven and I should pray to her. And I had holy cards of St. Rita. And when I grew older, knew she was the saint of impossible cases, I thought, well, maybe that's significant.
Very good. With that, we'll just say thank you.
Amen.